The US is now acting like a pirate state, and that should terrify you. Welcome back to News You're Just Not Seeing Enough of. I'm your host, Portia. And oh my God, we have some breaking news for you. We are officially pirates. If you haven't seen, as of yesterday, the United States has commandeered an oil tanker from Venezuela. Yes, y'all, you heard me correctly. We have seized a foreign oil tanker in international waters in violation of international law. We're pirates. Not only that, we've reorganized the military command in the Western Hemisphere for the United States, as well as started demanding that the ICC provide the regime leader Trump with immunity. And not just the regime leader, but his top officials with immunity from war crimes. This is not normal. If you understood international law, you would be terrified because of what it actually means. For my previous video, when I told you that the United States civics rating had been downgraded, yeah. So far, the news this week that's coming out of the United States is showing even further how that downgrade was not symbolic, but actual. Dare I say predictive of what's to come. According to Reuters, the Trump administration is pressuring the International Criminal Court to modify and amend the Rome Statute, which is the foundational treaty that governs war crime prosecution, to explicitly bar investigation of Trump and his top officials. So Reuters reports that U.S. officially fears prosecution in 2029 when Trump's term ends for the decisions that they're making now. And in response to prepare for that potential prosecution, they are threatening sanctions on International Criminal Court judges, sanctions on International Criminal Court prosecutors, and sanctions on the court itself. They are threatening sanctions on judges, prosecutors, and the International Court itself if they do not halt investigations into the U.S.'s actions in Afghanistan or investigations into Israeli officials. Why is our government threatening sanctions against the International Criminal Court to stop them from investigating Israeli officials? Sit on that. But let's be clear, the United States is not a party to the Rome Statute. It therefore cannot demand amendments to the Rome Statute. It also can't threaten jurists for doing their job without committing a breach of international norms, okay? This is a direct attempt to place the regime and the inner circle above international law. Project 2025 openly advocates for an executive that is unrestrained by independent agencies, courts, or international bodies. This is that blueprint in action. Free reign here, people, free reign. And not just a dictator in the United States, but a global dictator who can act with impunity with one of the largest and best funded militaries in the world. Y'all seeing the problem yet? In addition to threatening the International Criminal Court for give them immunity for war crimes, this regime also just committed potentially another crime against international maritime law. So the U.S. has seized a foreign oil tanker in international waters off the coast of Venezuela. Under maritime law, specifically the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, a nation can only seize a foreign vessel under very specific conditions. That vessel is engaging in piracy. We don't have any example of that here. Is engaging in unauthorized broadcast. That vessel is a slave transport. We don't have that indication here. Or that vessel is stateless. Also, none of those conditions have been stated publicly. Instead, what the regime leader said, and a quote, by the way, "We've just seized their tanker, the largest one ever seized, and other things are happening." And when the reporters asked him, well, what are you going to do with the oil on the tanker? "Well, I guess we'll keep it." What? We have to pause there. Seizing an oil tanker without legal basis in international waters is not just an act of extreme aggression, okay? It is what international law defines as an unlawful act of war requiring a diplomatic or military response. Y'all hear me? That's essentially a formal declaration of war by the regime leader. Not only that, if the US does in fact take the oil, as the regime leader has indicated, that is considered a pillage, potentially under Article 33 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which is a war crime when committed during a conflict and a violation of international law outside of it. Now, if we count the bombing of Venezuelan boats, the breach of their airspace, the attempted actions by the CIA on soil, covert actions, the threat for an increased military response from the regime leader, and now this, it potentially could be considered a war crime. Makes sense why they're pressuring the ICC for immunity from war crimes. It's also important that we all remember that timing matters. China and Russia also have naval vessels in the Caribbean for really the first time in modern history. Russia has increased its port visits. China is expanding its blue water reach. So this tanker incident didn't happen in a vacuum. You have to keep all of these pieces in mind. Who are Russia and China backing? Venezuela. Also yesterday, a breaking story that the US Army quietly activated a brand new Western Hemisphere Command. They merged US Army Force Command, Army North and Army South into a single 4-star operational headquarters. This is historic. You do not consolidate 3 major combat commands unless you anticipate regional instability, mass migration events, or military confrontation in the Americas. For 40 years, the US military structure remained relatively static. The last time we saw reorganization of this scope was during the War on Terror. So this is not peacetime posture. Again, none of this is happening in a vacuum, okay? We've got US out acting like pirates and thugs threatening the international court with sanctions if they don't get immunity. Cry me a fucking river. Meanwhile, nobody wants to come to the US. Tourism is collapsing, and this regime is threatening that even further. In fact, tourism is down 20% from Canada alone and nearly 27% from certain states. And the administration, well, they propose that foreign visitors, including visa waiver countries, should submit 5 years of social media history before entering the US. Think about this, right? Your political opinions, your network, your associations, your photos, your private communications are now subject to federal review as a condition of border entry. These are the kind of measures adopted by authoritarian states, not democracies, not even pseudo-democracies. Paired with the ICC pressure campaign, the new military command, you see the alignment. Concentrated executive power, expanded surveillance, militarized posture. When they are doing this, it's not behaving like a rule of law democracy. This is a pirate state. And it's exactly what Project 2025 was looking for. For a full breakdown on this news, as well as news you're not seeing enough of, go over and check out my Substack. Link is in my profile here on TikTok. And if you think this work is valuable, please consider subscribing for $5.55 a month. It really does help me keep these analyses coming and getting the information that you need to you. Either way, it is completely free. Head on over to my Substack and check out the full analysis with sources for the information that's being provided. Stay safe.